The distress beacon screamed through subspace with the urgency of a dying star. Commander Jake Harrison's hands froze over his console aboard the Terran frigate. Valiant, as the translation matrix parsed the alien signal. His second officer, Lieutenant Sophie Martinez, leaned over his shoulder, her breath catching as the words materialized on screen. "Help us. They are killing everyone." Coordinates attached. The transmission originated from Sector 9, deep in uncharted territory where no human ship had ventured in decades. Jake's jaw clenched. Protocol dictated they report to Fleet Command and wait for orders. But the desperation in that message burned through his military training like acid through steel. Sophie's voice cut through his thoughts. "Sir, that signal is 17 hours old. If we jump now, we might still have time." Jake knew the math. 17 hours meant whoever sent that beacon was likely already dead, their bodies cooling in the vacuum of space, or worse. But the might was enough. He slammed his fist on the comm panel. "Engineering, prep the jump drive. Navigation, plot a course to those coordinates. We leave in 10 minutes. The crew erupted into coordinated chaos, each member moving with practiced efficiency born from years of deep space operations. The Valiant's jump drive hummed to life. Reality folding around them like paper as they punched through the fabric of space. Jake stood on the bridge, fingers drumming against his command chair as countdown numbers flickered across the main screen. 3, 2, 1. The universe inverted and snapped back into focus. Before them floated a graveyard. Debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers, twisted metal and frozen bodies drifting in silent testimony to whatever horror had occurred here. Sophie gasped, her hand moving instinctively to cover her mouth. Jake's tactical display lit up like a Christmas tree. 27 distinct wreckage signatures, all matching the profile of Velkari merchant vessels. The Velkari were a peaceful species. Traders and explorers who avoided conflict, like humans avoided poison. Whatever had done this possessed overwhelming force and zero mercy. Movement flickered at the edge of sensor range. 3 ships, sleek and predatory, circled a damaged Velkari station like sharks around wounded prey. Their hull markings identified them as Kryn Raiders, a species known throughout the galaxy for their brutality and slave trade operations. Jake's blood turned to ice water in his veins. The Kryn were harvesting survivors, dragging them from the crippled station in cargo nets like fish. He could see the desperate struggles of the captives through his view screen, their movements growing weaker with each passing second. The Kryn had been smart, hitting the Velkari trade convoy far from any major shipping lanes where no one would respond to their distress call in time. They had been smart, but they had made one critical miscalculation. They had not expected humans. Sophie turned to Jake, her eyes hard as diamonds. "Sir, we count approximately 200 survivors still aboard that station. The Kryn are extracting them deck by deck. At current rate, they will have everyone within the hour." Jake nodded slowly, his mind racing through tactical scenarios. The Valiant was a frigate. Fast and maneuverable, but lightly armed compared to the Kryn destroyers. In a straight fight, they would lose, but Jake had not survived 15 years in the Terran Navy by fighting fair. He smiled, and Sophie recognized that expression. It was the smile of a Deathworlder, about to teach someone a very painful lesson. Jake's voice carried across the bridge with deadly calm. "Weapons. Load kinetic penetrators in tubes 1 through 4. Point defense systems to full auto. Sophie. Hack their communications array. I want every word they say recorded." The crew moved with quiet intensity, each order executed with precision. Jake watched the Kryn ships continue their harvest, completely unaware that death had just arrived in their sector. The largest Kryn destroyer turned slowly, presenting its broadside to the station as it maneuvered for another collection run. Jake's fingers tightened on his armrest. That was the opening he needed. Fire. The Valiant's kinetic penetrators screamed through space at a fraction of light speed. 4 tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic velocities, by magnetic coils that could crack a planet's crust. The Kryn destroyer never saw them coming. The first penetrator punched through its forward shield array like tissue paper, the kinetic energy vaporizing a 5-meter hole through the hull. The second and third followed microseconds behind, tearing through engine compartments and reactor containment fields. The fourth struck the ammunition magazine. The destroyer disintegrated in a flash of white light that painted the debris field in stark shadows. The two remaining Kryn ships broke formation instantly, their sensors screaming alerts as they tried to locate their attacker. Jake did not give them the chance. Full burn toward the station. Launch all drones. Electronic warfare. Jam everything they have. The Valiant surged forward, its fusion drives pushing crew members into their acceleration couches as the frigate built velocity. Behind them, a swarm of autonomous combat drones spread out like a metal cloud, each one carrying enough explosives to cripple a corvette. The Kryn commanders realized too late they were facing humans. Their tactical database flagged Earth species with a bright red warning label that every spacefaring race recognized. Deathworld origins. Extreme aggression. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The Kryn captain made the smart choice and ordered full retreat. But Jake had learned from history, from battles fought in Sol system against those who thought humans were easy prey. He had learned that mercy shown to slavers only guaranteed they would return to hurt someone else. He keyed his weapons officer. Disable their jump drives. I want them stuck here. Lasers lanced out from the Valiant. Precise surgical strikes that carved through the Kryn ships faster than light engines. Both vessels lurched as their jump capacitors exploded, stranding them millions of kilometers from any friendly port. Now came the hard part. Jake's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but everyone on the bridge heard every word. Launch boarding pods. Full assault loadout. We are taking those ships and every slave they have aboard. Sophie's eyes widened. Sir, we only have 30 Marines. The Kryn crews number in the hundreds each. Jake's smile never wavered. Then it will be a fair fight. The Valiant's boarding pods launched like bullets from a gun, magnetic accelerators hurling the armored capsules across the void. Inside each pod, Terran Marines checked their weapons and armor one final time, their faces hidden behind helmets painted with skulls and flames. The Kryn tried to shoot down the incoming pods, but their point defense systems were designed for missiles and drones, not for projectiles that could execute random, evasive maneuvers at the last second. The pods slammed into the hull of both Kryn ships simultaneously, breaching charges detonating to create entry points. Jake watched through the Marines' helmet cameras as they poured into the alien vessels, rifles barking in the confined corridors. The Kryn fought back with their own weapons, plasma rifles and shock batons crackling in the chaos. But they were facing humans, and humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill efficiently. The battle aboard the Kryn ships lasted 6 brutal minutes. The Marines moved through the corridors like ghosts, their training and augmented combat suits giving them an overwhelming advantage. They cleared room after room, deck after deck, working their way toward the holding cells where captured Velkari waited in terror. Jake listened to the tactical chatter, his expression grim as casualty reports flickered across his screen. 3 Marines wounded, none dead. On the Kryn side, the numbers climbed steadily higher. Finally, the Marine commander's voice crackled through the comm. Sir, both ships are secure. We have recovered 147 Velkari from the holding cells. The Kryn crews have surrendered. Jake stood from his command chair and straightened his uniform. Sophie looked at him with a question in her eyes that she did not voice. What would they do with several hundred Kryn prisoners and no prison facility within a dozen light-years? Jake's answer was cold and final. Strip them of weapons and environmental suits. Leave them on their ships with enough life support to reach the nearest Kryn outpost on sublight drives. It will take them 3 years. Tell them that if we ever catch them in this sector again, we will not be so merciful. Sophie nodded slowly, understanding the message Jake was sending. 3 years of slow travel through the void would give those Kryn plenty of time to reconsider their career choices. The Terran ships Valiant and Horizon dropped out of jump space at the coordinates transmitted in the distress beacon, which originated 3 days earlier from the Valkyrie refugee convoy. Captain Danny Morrison's tactical screen painted a picture of chaos. The massive refugee ships drifted in powered-down configurations, their engines cold and running lights dimmed to bare minimum visibility. 17 vessels carrying tens of thousands of Valkyrie civilians fleeing from the expanding Kryn Empire's aggressive territorial annexation. The convoy had been attacked 2 days ago, according to sensor logs, leaving behind scattered debris and radiation signatures consistent with Kryn plasma weapons. But what caught Danny's attention made his blood run cold in his veins. The lead refugee ship, the Sanctuary, showed damage to its communications array and engine sections. Scorch marks decorated the hull, like brutal artwork from a sadistic artist. Beside him, Tactical Officer Lisa Grant worked her console with practiced efficiency as sensor data flowed across multiple displays. Captain, I am detecting life signs aboard all 17 ships, approximately 42,000 individuals total. But there is something wrong with the power distribution patterns. Most systems are offline, except for minimal life support and environmental controls. Danny's fingers drummed against his command chair as his mind processed the tactical situation rapidly. Why would a refugee convoy power down everything except the bare essentials necessary for survival? The answer came from the science station where Lieutenant Marcus Webb had been analyzing the surrounding debris field. Sir, I have identified wreckage from at least 5 Kryn destroyers scattered throughout this sector, also detecting trace elements of Kryn life pods that were launched approximately 48 hours ago based on their current drift vectors. Someone hit these raiders hard enough to force complete evacuation protocols. Danny felt ice settle into his stomach as the implications crystallized. The Kryn had attacked the refugee convoy as expected, planning to capture the Valkyrie for their slave markets, as they had done countless times before. But someone had arrived in time to stop them. Lisa's sharp intake of breath drew everyone's attention to the tactical display. Captain, new contacts. Multiple ships emerging from the asteroid belt at bearing 270. Transponder signals identify them as Valkyrie defense vessels. 7 frigates and 2 cruisers. All weapons are powered, and targeting solutions are being calculated. Danny's hands moved across his console, opening communications channels while simultaneously ordering his ships to full battle stations. This is Captain Danny Morrison of the Terran Navy vessel Valiant to approaching Valkyrie ships. We received your distress beacon and came to render assistance. Please respond and confirm your intentions. The silence stretched for 10 seconds that felt like hours. Then a voice crackled through the speakers, feminine and tired, but carrying unmistakable authority. This is Commander Sella of the Valkyrie Defense Fleet. Forgive our caution, human captain, but we were not expecting anyone to respond to our beacon. We sent it as a final act of desperation, not believing any species would risk themselves for refugees they do not know. Danny understood the exhaustion in her voice and the caution in her approach. The Valkyrie had been running for months, watching the Kryn Empire devour their colonies and enslave their people. Trust would not come easily to beings who had seen so much horror. Danny kept his voice calm and professional. Commander Sella, we understand your hesitation. Humans have a saying about judging species by their actions rather than their words. We would like permission to board your medical vessels and offer assistance to your wounded. Our ships carry advanced medical supplies and personnel trained in multi-species physiology. There was a long pause before Sella responded, and Danny could hear quiet discussion in the background of the alien bridge. Very well, Captain Morrison. You may send a shuttle to the Sanctuary. We will have our medical staff meet you in Docking Bay 3. But Captain, I must warn you of something before you board these ships. The warning in her voice made Danny lean forward in his chair. Warn me of what, Commander? Sella's next words were carefully chosen, each syllable weighted with significance that transcended language barriers. 3 days ago, The Kryn attacked our convoy with overwhelming force. They disabled our engines and began boarding operations to capture civilians for their slave markets. We were helpless to stop them. Then, another ship arrived. A single human vessel that identified itself as the transport freighter, Redemption. The ship engaged all 5 Kryn destroyers simultaneously and destroyed them in less than 4 minutes of sustained combat. They rescued over 300 of our people, who had already been captured. Danny felt his spine straighten involuntarily as implications raced through his mind at light speed. A single transport freighter had engaged and destroyed 5 Kryn destroyers in 4 minutes. That kind of firepower exceeded anything in the Terran Navy's official arsenal by orders of magnitude. Either the Valkyrie were mistaken about the vessel classification, or something very unusual had happened in this sector. "Where is this ship now, Commander?" Sella's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. They refused to identify their captain or reveal their cargo. After ensuring we were safe, they jumped out of the system without accepting our gratitude or requesting compensation. But before they left, their captain sent us a message. Would you like to hear it? Danny's mouth went dry as he nodded before remembering she could not see the gesture. Yes, Commander. Play the message. Static crackled through the speakers briefly before a voice emerged. Male and rough with an accent Danny recognized as being from the outer colonies near the Kuiper Belt. This is the redemption to Valkyrie refugees. You are safe now. The Kryn will not trouble you again. We have left supplies and medical aid in the docking bays of your lead ships. Head for the coordinates I am transmitting now. There are allies waiting who will help you reach Sanctuary. Tell them the outcasts sent you, and if anyone asks what happened here, tell them that humans do not abandon those who call for help. Redemption. Out. The bridge fell silent as the message ended. Danny exchanged glances with Lisa and Marcus, seeing the same questions reflected in their eyes. The outcasts were not part of any official Terran fleet or merchant guild registry. They operated in the shadows beyond charted space, taking jobs that the legitimate authorities could not or would not handle. Rumors painted them as everything from pirates to vigilantes, but concrete information remained frustratingly scarce. What Danny knew for certain was that a single ship from this mysterious group had just accomplished what should have required a full battle group. Commander Sella's voice returned to the speakers, interrupting his thoughts. Captain Morrison, the coordinates the Redemption provided lead to a system 3 jumps from here. We have been traveling toward it for the past 2 days, but we do not know what waits for us there, or if we can trust the information provided by these outcasts. Danny made his decision in seconds, weighing protocols against morality and finding the balance that felt right. Commander, my ships will escort your convoy to those coordinates. If there is danger waiting, we will face it together. If there are allies as promised, we will verify their intentions before you commit your people. Relief flooded through Sella's voice like water through a broken dam. Thank you, Captain. Your willingness to help means more than you can know. We will prepare the convoy for departure within the hour. Please send your medical teams whenever you are ready. Danny cut the connection and turned to his crew, seeing determination written across their faces. Lisa, prep medical teams and supply shuttles. Marcus, coordinate with the Valkyrie navigation officers and calculate optimal jump routes to those mystery coordinates. And someone get me everything we have on file about this outcast group. I want to know exactly who we are dealing with before we jump into the unknown. The next hour passed in controlled chaos as shuttles moved between the Terran ships and the Valkyrie convoy. Danny watched from the bridge as supplies and personnel transferred efficiently, his medical teams working alongside Valkyrie doctors to treat the wounded from the Kryn attack. Reports flowed in steadily, painting a picture of refugees who had endured unimaginable hardship, but maintained their dignity and hope through sheer determination. 300 Valkyrie children had been recovered from the Kryn ships before they were destroyed. The trauma those children had experienced would require years of therapy and care to overcome. Marcus approached with a tablet containing intelligence reports on the outcasts, his expression troubled. Captain, you need to see this. The information we have is fragmentary at best. But it paints an interesting picture. The Outcasts appear to be a loose coalition of human ships and crews who operate outside the jurisdiction of Earth government or the colonial administrations. They take contracts that official forces cannot handle due to political restrictions or diplomatic complications. Essentially, they are a mercenary fleet with unclear motivations and no central command structure. Danny read through the reports, noting inconsistencies and gaps in the data. When did this group first appear? Marcus scrolled through files until he found relevant entries. First documented sighting was 11 months ago in the outer reaches. A merchant vessel reported being rescued from pirates by a ship that refused payment or identification. Similar reports followed over the next few months, always in remote sectors where official patrols were thin or non-existent. The pattern suggests they deliberately operate in areas where no one else can respond quickly. Danny considered the implications carefully. A group of humans operating outside government oversight, providing military assistance without seeking profit or recognition. That behavior pattern suggested either altruism or a hidden agenda that had not yet revealed itself. Lisa interrupted his contemplation with an urgent tone. "Captain, the convoy is ready to depart. Commander Sella is requesting our jump coordinates." Danny straightened in his chair and accessed the navigation controls. "Send them our calculated route to the mystery system. All ships will jump in sequence with 30-second intervals to avoid gravitational interference. Valiant leads, then the refugee ships. Then Horizon brings up the rear guard. Standard defensive formation." The bridge crew acknowledged his orders and began preparations for the jump. Danny felt the familiar tension that always proceeded faster than light travel, the moment when a ship left normal space and plunged into the strange physics of jump space. The Valiant's jump drive hummed to life, building power as the navigation computers finalized calculations. 3, 2, 1. Jump. Reality twisted and folded as the ship punched through space-time, emerging into the strange non-space where normal physics became suggestions rather than laws. Danny watched the main screen as it displayed the swirling chaos of jump space, monitoring his ship's systems for any anomalies. Behind them, the refugee convoy followed in precise intervals, each ship making the transition smoothly despite their damaged conditions. The Horizon took up position at the rear, her weapons systems active and scanning for any threats that might attempt to follow them through the jump. 3 hours of jump space travel gave Danny time to think about what awaited them at the coordinates. If the Outcasts were telling the truth, allies would be waiting to help the Velkari refugees establish a new home. If this was a trap, the Valiant and Horizon would need to defend 42,000 civilians against unknown hostiles while simultaneously jumping the convoy back to safe territory. Danny had faced longer odds during his career, but never with so many innocent lives depending on his decisions. He reviewed tactical scenarios and contingency plans until Lisa finally ordered him to get some rest before they emerged at their destination. Danny dozed fitfully in his ready room, his subconscious mind unable to relax completely while so many unknowns remained unresolved. When the jump completion alarm sounded, he was on the bridge before the echo faded. Status report. Lisa's fingers danced across her console. Successful emergence. At target coordinates. No immediate threats detected. System contains 1 habitable planet and extensive asteroid mining operations. I am detecting multiple artificial structures throughout the system. Captain, you need to see this. Danny moved to stand beside her, looking at the tactical display. What he saw made his jaw drop. The system was inhabited by dozens of ships, possibly hundreds, judging by the power signatures scattered across various orbital patterns. But these were not military vessels or merchant freighters. They were colony ships, transport vessels, mining platforms, and agricultural processors. This was not a military base or pirate haven. This was a fully functioning independent colony operating outside any known government authority. At the center of the system, orbiting the habitable planet, sat a massive station that dwarfed anything in Earth's orbital infrastructure. Marcus whistled softly. That station is at least 5 kilometers in diameter. Population capacity would be in the hundreds of thousands, minimum. Before Danny could process this revelation, communications lit up with an incoming hail. Audio and video both, originating from the central station. This is Haven Station, to approaching convoy. We have been expecting you. Please hold position while we dispatch tugs to guide your damaged vessels to repair docks. Medical teams are standing by to receive your wounded. Welcome to Haven. The voice was human, male, and carried an authority that suggested military training. Danny exchanged glances with Lisa before responding. Haven Station. This is Captain Danny Morrison of the Terran Navy. By whose authority does this station operate? We have no records of any sanctioned colonies in this sector. Laughter echoed through the speakers. Warm, but with an edge of cynicism. By the authority of those who need shelter, and cannot find it within the boundaries of governments that are too slow to act, or too cautious to help. We are the outcasts, Captain Morrison. We are every ship and every crew that chose action over protocol when lives were at stake. This station is home to 17,000 humans and over 30,000 individuals from 43 different species. We exist because someone must be willing to stand in the darkness and say no to the predators who hunt the weak. The main screen activated, showing a man who looked to be in his 50s, with gray-streaked hair and weathered features. He wore a simple uniform, with no insignia, but his bearing screamed, "Command authority." My name is Admiral Victor Kane, formerly of the Terran Navy until I decided that following orders mattered less than saving lives. The Valkyrie refugees you escort will find safety here. We have housing, medical facilities, schools, and employment opportunities prepared. In 6 months, they can choose to remain or seek passage to another destination. No one is forced to stay, and no one is turned away who needs help. Danny felt his worldview shifting as the implications became clear. The outcasts were not pirates or mercenaries. They were refugees themselves, in a sense. People who had chosen to operate outside the system because the system moved too slowly to address injustice. But that raised immediate questions about sustainability and long-term viability. Admiral Kane, with all due respect, how does this station sustain itself? You mentioned mining operations, but supporting 50,000 people requires immense resources. Kane's smile held bitter knowledge. We mine the asteroids and sell rare elements to merchants who do not ask too many questions about origins. We manufacture advanced components that are difficult to acquire through legitimate channels, and we accept donations from those we help who can afford to pay. But mostly, we survive because everyone here contributes according to their abilities and takes only what they need. The bridge crew absorbed this information in stunned silence. Marcus finally spoke up, his voice uncertain. Sir, what Kane is describing sounds like socialism mixed with frontier justice. Danny nodded slowly. It sounds like what humans did before governments grew large enough to handle everything centrally. It sounds like communities taking care of themselves, because no one else would do it for them. Kane's voice carried across the channel with renewed intensity. Captain Morrison, I know what you are thinking. You are wondering if we are legal or if we are a threat to Earth's authority. The answer is that we do not care about legality when children are being sold into slavery. We do not care about authority when innocent people are dying, while governments debate the appropriate diplomatic response. We care about action. Danny found himself nodding before he consciously decided to do so. Admiral Kane, my orders were to respond to the Valkyrie distress beacon and render assistance. Those orders have been fulfilled. What happens next is above my pay grade, but I can tell you this. The people on these refugee ships owe their lives to your outcasts. That counts for something in my book. Kane's expression softened slightly. Thank you, Captain. Your honesty is appreciated. Now, I believe your medical teams would like to see our facilities. Consider yourselves invited to dock at Haven Station. We will share a meal and discuss the future. Perhaps we can find common ground between the official fleet and those of us who operate in the shadows. The next 8 hours passed in a blur of activity as the Valkyrie convoy docked with Haven Station and began the process of integrating with the existing population. Danny toured the facilities with Admiral Kane, seeing firsthand how the outcasts had built a functioning society from nothing but determination and salvaged materials. The station featured hydroponic farms, manufacturing centers, schools, and medical facilities that rivaled anything found in Earth orbit. But what impressed Danny most was the diversity. Humans worked alongside Valkyrie, Kishion, Horath, and dozens of other species in harmonious cooperation born from shared adversity. Kane walked Danny through a medical wing where Valkyrie children were being treated for injuries and trauma. Human doctors worked alongside alien physicians, sharing knowledge and techniques to provide the best care possible. One particular child, a young Valkyrie female with large eyes that reflected too much pain for her age, looked up at Danny as he passed. She spoke in halting English, learned from the ship's translators. "Thank you for coming. The bad things almost got us, but the humans stopped them." Danny knelt beside her bed, his throat tight with emotion. "You are safe now. No one will hurt you here." The child smiled weakly before closing her eyes, exhausted from everything she had endured. Kane's voice carried quiet intensity as they left the medical wing. "These children are why we do what we do, Captain. Every species in the galaxy looks at humans and sees Deathworlders, dangerous creatures from a hostile planet who should be feared and avoided. But those same species never ask why we evolved to be so effective at combat. We evolved that way because Earth is merciless to the weak, and we learned to fight or die. But we also learned to protect our young with ferocity that no predator could match. These children are under our protection now, and that protection is absolute." Danny understood the message. The outcasts might operate outside official channels, but their motivations were clear and their dedication was total. They reached the station's command center, where a massive holographic display showed the entire system and all ships within it. Danny studied the tactical layout, noting defense platforms hidden among the asteroids and mobile weapons platforms disguised as mining equipment. Kane noticed his attention and smiled. "We exist in a dangerous neighborhood, Captain. The Kryn Empire considers this sector to be their hunting ground. We have disabused them of that notion on several occasions." Danny could imagine what those occasions involved, based on what happened to the destroyers that attacked the Valkyrie convoy. "How many Kryn ships have you destroyed?" Kane's smile turned cold. "Enough that they have learned to avoid this system entirely." Danny realized he was standing at a crossroads that would define his career and possibly his life. He could report Haven Station to Fleet Command and watch as lawyers and politicians debated the legality of its existence, while people continued to suffer. Or he could choose a different path. "Admiral Kane, I think my ship developed some navigation errors during our jump to this system. It will take us several days to recalibrate our equipment before we can safely return to Earth space." Kane's eyes showed understanding, and perhaps a hint of respect. "Of course, Captain. These things happen. You are welcome to use our facilities during your repairs. Perhaps your crew would like shore leave on the planet below. We have a settlement there with excellent food and entertainment." Lisa and Marcus both stared at Danny with wide eyes, understanding exactly what he had just done. By claiming navigation issues, he was buying time to evaluate Haven Station thoroughly before making any official reports. It was bending the rules without breaking them, creating space for him to gather complete information before committing to a course of action. Kane gestured toward the holographic display. "In the interest of full transparency, let me show you everything we have built here. I want you to understand exactly what we are trying to accomplish before you decide how to report this to your superiors. Our goal is not to undermine Earth's authority or create a separatist movement. Our goal is simply to provide sanctuary for those who have nowhere else to go, and protection for those who cannot protect themselves." The next 2 days fundamentally changed Danny's perspective on his role in the Terran Navy. He met refugees from a dozen different species who shared stories of narrow escapes from slavery, genocide, or starvation. He toured manufacturing facilities where advanced technology was being produced without corporate oversight or government regulation. He visited the planet's surface and saw settlements where families from vastly different backgrounds worked together to build new lives. And throughout it all, he saw humans who had chosen conscience over career, action over comfort, and justice over rules. On the third day, Danny stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, watching ships come and go in a constant flow of commerce and communication. Admiral Kane joined him, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He offered one to Danny, who accepted it gratefully. "So, Captain Morrison, what will you tell Earth when you return?" Danny sipped his coffee, considering his words carefully. "I will tell them the truth. I will report that we responded to a distress beacon and successfully escorted Velkari refugees to a safe haven in previously uncharted space. I will mention Haven Station and its inhabitants, but I will also emphasize that this station poses no threat to Earth's interests and provides valuable humanitarian services in regions where official resources are stretched thin." Kane nodded slowly. "And will they accept that assessment?" Danny smiled without humor. "Some will. Others will want to investigate further or assert control. But the galaxy is a big place, and Earth's navy cannot be everywhere. Sometimes, the best solution is to let good people do good work without interference. Just make sure you stay on the right side of that line, Admiral." Kane raised his coffee cup in a slight salute. "We intend to, Captain. We intend to." They stood in companionable silence. 2 military men who understood that sometimes the best battles were the ones you prevented rather than fought. Below them, refugees and outcasts worked together to build something remarkable in the darkness of space. The transport ship Defiance screamed through space at velocities that should have torn its hull apart. In the cargo bay, Lieutenant Commander Alex Murphy checked weapons for the 15th time, while his strike team waited in tense silence. They had received the distress call 4 hours ago, transmitted on emergency frequencies with coordinates deep in the disputed border zone between human space and Kryn territory. 3 Terran mining colonies on isolated asteroids had gone silent simultaneously. The pattern matched previous Kryn raids perfectly. Hit fast. Grab civilians for slave markets. Vanish before anyone could respond. But the Kryn had made 2 critical errors. First, they had attacked colonies flagged in the Outcast database as being under informal protection due to their vulnerable positions. Second, they had underestimated exactly how fast human ships could respond when lives were at stake. The Defiance was not a warship by official classification. On paper, she was registered as a bulk cargo hauler with standard civilian drive systems. In reality, she mounted military-grade engines, concealed weapons arrays, and a crew trained in combat operations that would make regular Marines jealous. Alex's team represented the best of the outcasts, volunteers who had chosen this life knowing the risks. Beside Alex, Corporal Nina Zhang checked her helmet seals one final time. Her voice carried through the team's encrypted communications channel. "How many hostiles are we expecting based on the sensor data?" Alex pulled up tactical information on his wrist display. "Best estimate puts Kryn ground forces at 40 to 60 individuals spread across 3 mining colonies. They will be equipped with standard plasma rifles and shock weapons. Expect heavy resistance. Once they realize, we are not just here to negotiate." Nina's grin showed through her helmet's transparent faceplate. "Good. I hate easy missions." The rest of the team chuckled darkly, their combat experience showing through dark humor. The Defiance's captain spoke through the intercom. 2 minutes to target. Stealth systems are holding, but expect immediate detection once we deploy pods. Alex stood and began final equipment checks on his team. Acknowledge. Teams Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, prepare for immediate combat drop. Remember your training and watch your fields of fire. These colonies have civilian populations that we need to protect. The strike teams moved with practiced efficiency. loading into drop pods that would fire them toward the asteroid colonies, like bullets from guns. Each pod held 6 soldiers in cramped acceleration couches, surrounded by enough armor to survive point defense fire and enough weapons to level a city block. Alex's pod sealed with a hiss of hydraulics, the internal lighting shifting to combat red as systems came online. He felt the familiar tension before combat, the tightening in his chest, and the hyper-awareness of every sound and sensation. His team sat quietly, each member focusing inward on their assigned roles and objectives. 10 years ago, Alex had been regular Terran Navy, serving with distinction until he watched commanders refuse to rescue hostages because the political situation was too delicate. That day changed him forever. Now he served with the outcasts where results mattered more than politics. Launch. The drop pods fired from the Defiance like artillery shells, magnetic accelerators hurling them toward the 3 asteroid colonies, at speeds that made Alex's teeth rattle despite the dampening systems. Through his helmet's heads-up display, he watched as the Kryn ships scrambled to respond. Too slow. The pods were already committed and moving too fast for point defense to track effectively. Impact in 20 seconds. Alex's fingers tightened on his rifle as adrenaline flooded his system. Around him, his team prepared for the shock of landing and immediate combat. The pod hit the asteroid's surface with bone-jarring force, breaching charges detonating to create an entry point through the outer hull. Alex was moving before the smoke cleared, his combat suit's servos augmenting his strength as he led his team into the mining colony's corridors. Gunfire erupted immediately. Plasma bolts screamed past his head, leaving glowing trails in the air. Alex's rifle barked in response, electromagnetic coils accelerating tungsten rounds to hypersonic speeds. The first Kryn soldier fell with a fist-sized hole through its armored chest. The rest scattered, seeking cover in the narrow passages of the mining facility. Alex's team moved through the colony like ghosts, their training and superior equipment giving them overwhelming advantages in the close-quarters environment. The Kryn had numbers but lacked the combat experience of soldiers who fought in hostile conditions regularly. Nina flanked left, her submachine gun chattering as she cleared a storage room full of hiding raiders. Clear. Moving to the processing center. Alex acknowledged and directed the rest of his team deeper into the facility. According to the colony's layout, the civilian population would have retreated to the central hub where life support systems were most secure. The Kryn would be there, using hostages as shields against rescue attempts. Alex's earpiece crackled with updates from the other teams. Bravo team reporting successful insertion at Colony 2. Encountering moderate resistance. Charlie team is engaged at Colony 3 with heavier opposition. Civilian casualties reported. Alex's jaw clenched. Every second they delayed meant more innocent people could die. He increased pace, leading his team through winding corridors marked with blast damage and blood. The Kryn had not been gentle during their initial assault. Bodies lay where they had fallen, miners and technicians who had been caught in the open when the raiders arrived. They reached the central hub access door, which had been sealed from the inside. Through the thick barrier, Alex could hear muffled sounds of struggle and alien voices shouting commands. He signaled his demo expert forward. Breach charge on the door. Shaped directional. Minimal collateral. We go in fast and hard. The explosive expert worked quickly, placing charges with practiced precision that came from years of similar operations. Everyone stood back as the countdown timer flickered toward 0. 3, 2, 1. The charges detonated with a sharp crack that shattered the door's locking mechanism and blew it inward. Alex was through the opening before the smoke cleared, his rifle tracking targets with machine-like efficiency. The hub contained approximately 50 civilians huddled in the center, surrounded by 12 Kryn raiders with weapons pointed at their captives. The lead raider began to shout something, probably a threat about killing hostages if the humans advanced. Alex did not give him the chance to finish. His rifle spoke once, the round taking the raider's head off in a spray of alien blood and tissue. The other Kryn responded instantly. Their discipline, better than Alex had expected. Plasma fire filled the air, forcing his team to take cover behind equipment and structural supports. But the Kryn had made a fatal tactical error. By surrounding the civilians, they had limited their own fields of fire and created crossfire zones where they risked hitting each other. Alex's team exploited this mercilessly. Nina and two others circled wide, using the confusion to flank the raiders from an unexpected angle. Their weapons' fire cut down 3 Kryn before the aliens realized they were being attacked from multiple directions. Alex pressed forward, his combat suit absorbing several plasma hits that would have killed an unarmored human. The Kryn were tough fighters, but they were not prepared for opponents who combined superior technology with absolute determination. The firefight lasted 43 seconds. When the smoke cleared, all 12 Kryn raiders lay dead, and Alex's team secured the civilian population. Medical Officer Chen immediately began checking the hostages for injuries, his scanner moving from person to person with practiced efficiency. Most are in good condition, considering circumstances, minor wounds and severe stress. 3 individuals require immediate medical evacuation for trauma care. Alex nodded curtly and activated his comm link to the Defiance. Alpha Team has secured Colony 1, with all civilian hostages recovered. Requesting immediate medevac for 3 casualties. Status on Bravo and Charlie teams. Bravo Team reports full success with no civilian casualties. Charlie Team is still engaged. They hit heavier resistance than anticipated and are calling for reinforcement. Alex's decision was instantaneous. Load these civilians on the first shuttle and send my team to reinforce Charlie. We are not leaving anyone behind. His team acknowledged without hesitation, moving to secure the civilians for evacuation. The miners and technicians stared at their rescuers with expressions mixing gratitude and shock. One woman, her face streaked with tears and dirt, grabbed Alex's arm as he passed. "Thank you. They were going to take us. They were going to take our children." Alex's voice was gentle despite the adrenaline still surging through his system. "You are safe now. We will get you home." The shuttle arrived within minutes, its pilot executing a precision landing in the colony's damaged docking bay. Alex watched as his team loaded civilians aboard, treating each person with care despite the urgency of their situation. Once the last hostage was secure, he led his remaining team members toward the second shuttle waiting to take them to Colony 3. Nina joined him, reloading her weapons as they ran. "What is the situation at 3? Alex checked his tactical display. Charlie reports 20 hostiles still active and dug into defensive positions. They are using mining equipment as cover and have split the civilian population across multiple locations. It is going to be messy." The shuttle ride to Colony 3 took less than 4 minutes but felt like hours. Alex used the time to review tactical data and coordinate with Charlie Team's commander. The colony's layout was less favorable than the previous 2, with wider corridors and larger open spaces that gave defenders clear fields of fire. The Kryn had learned from their mistakes and adapted their tactics accordingly. Alex would need to adjust his approach or risk taking casualties his small force could not afford. He pulled up schematics of the colony's power systems and environmental controls, looking for creative solutions to the tactical problem. They inserted on the colony's far side, away from the main engagement to avoid alerting the Kryn to their arrival. Alex led his combined team through maintenance tunnels that snaked through the asteroid's interior, narrow passages barely wide enough for their armored forms. The sounds of combat grew louder as they approached the central sections where Charlie Team was pinned down. Through his tactical link, Alex could see Charlie's positions marked in blue and hostile locations marked in red. The Kryn had established overlapping fields of fire that made direct assault extremely costly. Time for unconventional tactics. Alex signaled his team to halt and accessed the colony's environmental controls through his wrist computer. The Kryn relied heavily on thermal vision due to their homeworld's dimmer sun. Alex intended to exploit that weakness. He triggered the environmental system to flood several sections with superheated steam from the colony's thermal processing units. Within seconds, clouds of scalding vapor began billowing through the corridors, obscuring normal vision and overwhelming the Kryn's thermal sensors with uniform heat signatures. The alien soldiers began shouting in confusion as their primary sensing method became useless. Move. Alex's team advanced through the steam like demons emerging from hell, their helmet sensors piercing the clouds with infrared and sonar mapping. The Kryn fired blindly, their plasma bolts sizzling through the superheated air but hitting nothing as Alex's soldiers moved with precision between defensive positions. Nina took point, her close-quarters combat training evident as she cleared rooms with brutal efficiency. Alex followed, directing fire teams to flank and envelope the confused defenders. The Kryn fought desperately, but they were fighting blind against an enemy who could see perfectly through the artificial fog. Charlie team capitalized on the confusion, breaking from their defensive positions to advance on the Kryn rear. Caught between two forces and unable to see their attackers, the alien raiders began to break. Some attempted to surrender. Others fought to the death with the fanaticism of beings who knew capture meant execution under galactic law for their crimes. Alex felt no pity as his team systematically eliminated resistance. These Kryn had come to take innocent people as slaves. They had terrorized families and traumatized children. Whatever fate they met in these corridors was justice for their actions. The steam began to clear as Alex's team secured the last Kryn positions and freed the remaining hostages. Final body count showed 24 Kryn dead and 0 surviving to face trial. Alex's combined teams had taken 3 wounded, none seriously enough to require critical care. The civilians from Colony 3 emerged from hiding, their faces showing the psychological toll of hours spent listening to combat rage around them. One elderly miner approached Alex, his voice shaking with emotion. "You came. We did not think anyone would come in time." The Kryn said no one cared about miners on forgotten rocks in the middle of nowhere. Alex removed his helmet, letting the man see his face. "Someone always cares. That is why we do this. You are not forgotten, and you are not alone." The extraction proceeded smoothly once all 3 colonies were secure. Shuttles ferried civilians to the Defiance, where medical teams waited to treat physical and psychological wounds. Alex supervised the evacuation personally, ensuring every person was accounted for before allowing his own team to stand down. Nina approached him as the last shuttle departed. Her armor scorched from plasma hits, but her expression satisfied. Another successful rescue. The Kryn will think twice before hitting these colonies again. Alex nodded, but his expression remained serious. They will think twice about these specific colonies. But there are thousands of others out here. We cannot protect them all. Nina's response carried the fatalism of someone who had accepted the limits of what they could accomplish. Then we protect the ones we can reach, and hope it is enough. Alex appreciated her pragmatism even as he wished for better solutions. The Defiance began its journey back to Haven Station, its cargo bay filled with grateful refugees who owed their freedom to people willing to act when others would not. Alex sat in the crew quarters cleaning his weapons, the familiar ritual helping him process the violence he had participated in. Killing was never easy, even when necessary. But looking at the faces of children who would grow up free instead of enslaved made the moral calculus clear. Admiral Kane's voice came through the intercom. "Job well done, Alex. You and your teams have my gratitude and the thanks of everyone at Haven. Stand down for 48 hours of rest. You have earned it." Alex acknowledged and allowed himself to relax for the first time in hours. Around him, his team stripped off armor and began the process of returning to normal human consciousness after the heightened state combat required. They joked and teased each other, the dark humor of soldiers who had seen too much death but refused to let it break them. Nina started a card game that quickly became competitive and loud, drawing other team members into the chaos. Alex watched his people decompress and felt pride in what they had accomplished. The outcasts might operate outside official channels, and their methods might be questioned by those who preferred diplomatic solutions. But at the end of the day, they got results. 3 colonies were safe, because people were willing to risk their lives for strangers. Families were together, because someone answered a distress call that official forces would have reached too late. Children would grow up free because the outcasts refused to accept that some lives were too remote or too unimportant to save. That made all the risk worthwhile. The Defiance's approach to Haven Station brought Alex to the observation deck, where he could see the massive structure growing larger through the viewport. Ships came and went in constant motion, a hive of activity that represented hope for thousands of beings seeking refuge from a hostile galaxy. Alex had been with the Outcasts for 3 years now, ever since he resigned his commission rather than follow orders he considered morally bankrupt. He had not regretted the decision once. Here, surrounded by people who valued action over politics and results over procedure, he had found purpose that military service had promised, but never delivered. As the Defiance docked and the crew began standard post-mission procedures, Alex allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The Kryn would hear about today's failure. Word would spread through their empire that human colonies were no longer easy targets. Raiders would learn to avoid systems where outcasts operated. And somewhere out in the darkness, other slavers and predators would hear rumors of Deathworlders, who appeared without warning to punish those who preyed on the weak. Fear was a powerful deterrent. When applied correctly, Alex understood that lesson in ways that peaceful species never would. Sometimes, the only language bullies understood was overwhelming force, applied with absolute conviction. He made his way to the mess hall, where his team had gathered for a celebratory meal. The atmosphere was boisterous, soldiers enjoying the simple pleasure of being alive after combat. Nina waved him over to their table, a plate of food already prepared. "Sit down before it gets cold. We were just discussing which Kryn ship we should hit next to send an even stronger message." Alex sat and picked up his fork, enjoying the familiar banter and camaraderie. These people were his family now, bound together by shared purpose and mutual respect. They came from different backgrounds and different planets, but they all understood one fundamental truth. When the choice came between comfortable safety and dangerous necessity, real heroes chose necessity every time.